Welcome to Slacker Sports Show.
Good evening, sports fans, and welcome back to another podcast episode of Slacker Sports Show, where we discuss anything and everything you want to know about sports. Let's welcome in the co-host of the podcast, Mark. How you doing today, Mark?
Doing well. Super Bowl week. Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl, so we're both a little bit biased and a little bit excited, but ready to talk about that. And then we got some exciting video game news past couple of days, which kind of crosses over between the podcast and Trevor's YouTube channel. So got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest thing to talk about right now, and it's kind of on everyone's radar, is the Super Bowl. And by the time this is out, Super Bowl will be a couple days away. So pretty exciting that our Chiefs made it. I think we could both agree that I guess they deserved to be there, and we wanted them there. And honestly, I'm a little surprised that the Buccaneers are who we're playing. I really thought the Packers were going to be who we had to face. And to be honest with you, I'd rather face the Bucs than the Packers. The Packers just really scared me. And like just Aaron Rodgers in general. And I know, it's Tom Brady, but I feel like Aaron Rodgers is more of a complete quarterback than Tom Brady is right now. And so I was actually kind of more worried about stopping Green Bay than I am really stopping the offense of Tampa Bay. What did you think about it? Or did you think the Bucs were, superior team than the Packers?
I think they're about on the same level, talent-wise, top to bottom. I think I would have been more scared, like you said, facing Rodgers. I think his level of play at this point is higher than Brady's. I'm not saying Brady's like a game manager. He'll still pull out good plays here and there, but I think he had 3 interceptions last week, pretty sure. And so he doesn't put the fear of God into people like he used to. And Aaron Rodgers still has a little bit of that. So I think for that case, for kind of comparing quarterbacks, I would have been more scared facing Green Bay. But talent-wise, I think the Bucs and the Packers are about the same top to bottom. So I don't know if I would have preferred one over the other, but still going to be a challenge. Not saying I'm not afraid of what the Buccaneers have, but definitely could have faced some other teams that may have scared me a little bit more.
Yeah, and so I think it'd be fun to you came up with this game comparing who has the advantages in the Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. So we're going to go over kind of every position, like quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line as a whole, defensive line as a whole, linebackering core, and then secondary, and then coaching. So kind of a fun little wrinkle to put in it. So let's get it started off with the quarterback. We're going to try to put bias aside. We're going to try to think in general from a average NFL fan that has no dog in the race. Who are we picking when it comes to the best quarterback? And who do you got between Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady?
I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady still got something left in the tank, but Mahomes is at the top of his game and basically the top of the NFL, and probably should have been more in the MVP conversation, but I think it's kind of the LeBron situation where people get tired of picking Mahomes for MVP, so Aaron Rodgers might get that, but definitely think Mahomes has the advantage, has more arm strength, has some maybe more explosive weapons. Not saying the Bucs don't have weapons, and we'll talk about all their players here in a little bit, but a more creative system too, I think, in Kansas City. So I would pick Mahomes there, and I'd say it's by a pretty significant margin. What do you think between those two quarterbacks?
Yeah, definitely the same. I just feel like, especially after last week, watching Tom Brady start off so well, and it was kind of like the old Tom Brady, and then all of a sudden he just started throwing picks, like he just wasn't hitting his reads, like it kind of turned into a mess the second half. But if it wasn't for his defense bailing him out, then I honestly think the Packers would have came back and won that. But in the end, the defense of Tampa Bay kind of helped seal that game. And so, yeah, I think Mahomes in almost every single aspect of what you look in a quarterback, as far as, I feel like Patrick Mahomes does better in the pocket. I feel like he gets out and extends plays better. Pretty much every aspect of it, I think, goes to Mahomes and the Chiefs. The second is the running backs, and we're looking at kind of the duo between Edwards-Hilaire and Bell for the Chiefs, and Jones and Fournette for the Bucs. And I'll start this one off, and I think it's really, really even. I think the best running back core goes to however the offensive line is doing or the play scheme going on, because I feel like the Chiefs might have the actual better running backs in Edwards, Hilaire, and Le'Veon Bell, but they use them differently than how Jones and Fournette are used. The Chiefs kind of use them, yes, to run in between the tackles, but most of the Chiefs' offense is based on pass packages, so they're being used differently than I feel like the Bucs of Jones and Fournette. So if I have to pick running backs, and if I pick it based on like actual outcome as far as yards going, I'm actually going to go with the Bucs on this one, because I feel like they use their running backs more as running backs, whereas the Chiefs use their running backs more as pass catchers and kind of screen options. As far as talent goes, I think the Chiefs have the better talent. I just don't think they use their running backs the same as, I guess, the traditional running back is used in the game. Who do you have between Hilaire and Bell and Jones and Fournette?
Yeah, I would basically agree with everything you said. I think it's all about kind of how they use them, and just looking at team stats from the regular season, the Buccaneers average about 94, almost 95 yards per game. Chiefs averaged about 112, which actually surprised me a little bit. Neither one of those are top of the league by any means, so neither one of them have a dominant run game. But I would agree with you. I think the extra dimension of the Chiefs using them in more pass packages and then being more of a dynamic threat instead of Leonard Fournette, who's going to be kind of in the rotation for the Bucs, is more of a downhill runner sort of guy. And Ronald Jones, kind of the same thing. I mean, Ronald Jones had 165 yards receiving this year, and Fournette had, 233. And Chiefs, I mean, Bell had, Bell had about 100 yards receiving this year, and Clyde Edwards-Hilaire had about 297. So really, I guess even, but I consider the Chiefs running backs more of a threat in the passing game, and it's more a part of their offense. So I'd say the talent is pretty even between kind of those two pairs on each side, but the scheme and offensive schemes are going to be really important in this game, and I think that because the Chiefs use their running backs differently and are more dynamic with them, that the Chiefs might have the edge there.
All right, the next position we're going to look at is the wide receivers, and we're going to do 3 deep as far as wide receivers, because usually you got wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and then the slot. I know it gets deeper than that, but we're just going to go top 3. So we got Hill, or for the Chiefs, we got Hill, Hardman, and Watkins, and for the Bucs, we got Evans, Godwin, and Brown. Most of those names you should already know the first names of, so I don't feel like we have to say them. But who do you think has the best top 3 wide receivers in the Super Bowl?
I would say the Buccaneers on this one. I just think that their top 3 has more potential to really go off than maybe the Chiefs do. Just kind of looking at the stats here, Mike Evans had over 1,000 yards, and I mean, this is kind of a problem the Chiefs have too, where the stats may not say everything just because you're divvying up yards everywhere, but Mike Evans had over 1,000 yards. Chris Godwin had over 800 yards this year. And then depending on who you want to put 3, if you go Antonio Brown, he had over 400 yards, but that was kind of a midseason pickup. And Scotty Miller, who's been more their focus in the postseason, it seems like, had about 500 yards. So I just think that the Evans, Godwin, and either Brown or Miller, whoever you want to put third, has more potential to really go off. I think Tyreek Hill's probably the best receiver overall. Evans could give him a run for his money, but if I had to pick one receiver out of this group, I think I'd pick Tyreek Hill. But McCole Hardman and Sammy Watkins just don't seem like they have the firepower to match 2 and 3 with the Bucs, in my opinion. I mean, I know that McCole Hardman can go off, and Sammy Watkins can have a good game here and there, but if you told me there's one game and I had to pick out the receiving core that was going to get the most potential out of each spot, I would say the Buccaneers have the edge for me there. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with that 100%. Mostly because, again, it comes back to how we use our, when I say we, I mean the Chiefs, how the Chiefs use their wide receiving core, how they use their packages. To be honest with you, if you have to look straight up wide receiver, Tampa Bay has the better wide receivers hands down. I would say if Tyreek Hill was in a different package, not under Andy Reid, and not where if he was put in a traditional offense of how wide receiver runs routes, I would say Evans and Godwin are both better than Hill. The reason why Hill is so successful is because he's in basically the perfect offense that uses his skill set the most. And so as far as like a complete wide receiver, I would say Evans and Godwin. We're talking about like wide receivers that are able to, you're able to lob that pass up in the end zone and they're able to go get it. Hill doesn't really have that type of aspect, that type of wide receiver. That's not what he does. He just straight out outruns everyone. And that's kind of what the Chiefs, all their wide receivers do. Hill outruns people. Hardman outruns people. Watkins is most the traditional wide receiver that the Chiefs have as far as being able to kind of catch in between the tackles. But yeah, I mean, the offense is made perfectly for Hill and made perfectly for Hardman. But as far as like a traditional wide receiver, I got to give the upper hand to the Bucs. So the next thing we're going to go over is the tight ends, and it's Kelce and Gronk. We kind of got two tight ends that are at a point. They're at their prime. I would say Kelce is at his prime now. I would say Gronk was at his prime 3-4 years ago. But looking at it just as of right now, who do you got for the tight ends between Kelce and Gronk?
I'm going with Kelce. I think he's like you said, at his prime now, and playing at the top of his game. Has had a bunch of great games in the postseason, and is definitely playing his best football. And Gronk, like you mentioned, has had injuries. He's kind of more around just as a security blanket for Tom Brady. And not saying he's not productive, but he's not what he was when he's with the Patriots and when he was really kind of balling out 4 or 5 years ago. So I'd say Kelce has the advantage. Neither one of these teams are really deep if one of these players gets hurt. I'd say if you're talking about the whole tight end core, maybe the Buccaneers would have the advantage because Cameron Brate's not bad at backup tight end. But if we're just comparing the top guys, I would say Kelce has the advantage by quite a ways. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if anybody goes off in this game, it's going to be Kelce. But I also feel like maybe Tampa Bay goes after Kelce and double teams him, triple teams him in coverage. So maybe, he won't have that big game. But as far as I think in general talent, I think Kelce takes that by a landslide, especially since Gronk's kind of, I wouldn't say he's leveled off and this is the worst he's ever played, but he's definitely not at the top of his game right now. And I think Gronk and Brate kind of combined as into one player. If I put Kelce versus Gronk and Brate, I still think Kelce comes out on top. I think he's just the way they use him, how he's used. I mean, he's kind of like their check down guy that, if nothing's open, you can always count on Kelce to find himself to get open. So, yeah, I would definitely say the tight end position has to go to Kelce. So going over the offensive line, I'm not going to really go over every single position. We're just talking as of coming into the game as of what we know right now. That's whether or not people play because of COVID or whatever. Who do you have as the better offensive line, whether it be running, passing, or just, I guess, in general?
I'd say they're honestly about even in my opinion. I'd maybe give the Bucs an advantage here just because of the Eric Fisher injury. And I know he's not what we all hoped he'd be when they took him number 1 overall all those years ago. But I'd say that the Bucs may have a little bit of an advantage there. But it's not really – I'm not going to bog people down with offensive line stats or anything. But it's not a real distinct advantage on either side. It's not like you have the Cowboys in there who have a stellar offensive line or the Steelers who have this great offensive line that you're terrified of. Both these teams have a line that's just kind of middle of the road, does the job, nothing outstanding. And I guess if I had to pick one, I'd pick Tampa. Who are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on the offensive line. I just feel like they're both solid enough to get the job done, and it's just kind of one of those teams that, or one of those years where like the offensive line, you could flip flop them, and you would probably see no difference as far as like what you said. The Cowboys just have a crazy good offensive line. Cleveland has a very good offensive line, and you just don't really see that with either of these teams. They kind of do what they need to do to get wins, and I mean it's got them to the Super Bowl, so I guess it works. So if I had to pick someone, I would say the Bucs probably too, just because Eric Fisher being out. Not that Eric Fisher was the greatest, but I just feel like the Chiefs are already down kind of an offensive lineman there already as far as the starters go. So I would go the Bucs here, but I think it's close, and I think it's pretty much just a coin toss. So let's go over to the defensive line, which I do not think is a coin toss. I think, to me, there's a clear favorite here, and it's got to be the Chiefs. It's got to be that defensive line that we've paid a lot of money to in Chris Jones and Frank Clark. And, I mean, you could look at Derek Nottie, and you could look at Passanio. You can look at all those guys, and we know those names because we watch the Chiefs. But as far as, I guess, defensive line stars, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with Chris Jones and Frank Clark. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, looking at the stats, you might think Tampa Bay would come out on top on this one, but again, I think this comes down to scheme and how they're used, and I think the Chiefs just have kind of a lot of dynamic ways that they use Chris Jones, Frank Clark, about everybody in that front seven, and can get to the quarterback in different ways than kind of the Buccaneers, who have Jason Pierre-Paul. They got Ndamukong Suh, kind of got just guys that are going to bull rush you and maybe not have a lot of finesse in their game or put too many moves on you. So I'd say the Chiefs could cause more mayhem, I guess I'll put it that way, and could maybe really upset a game more than just these guys who are going to bull rush you and make it to the quarterback but aren't going to challenge your offensive line too much.
Yeah, and I feel like you said it perfectly there. I feel like the Chiefs have the defensive guys in Frank Clark and Chris Jones to change a game, to get that sack fumble or to make a fumble or, intercept a pass even. I feel like Chris Jones and Frank Clark would be more likely to make that play than like Sue and Pierre-Paul. Now, I mean, again, their defensive line is great, the Bucs are, but I just feel like if it comes down to making plays and playmakers, I feel like the Chiefs' defensive line kind of takes that. Going on to the linebacking core, and I don't know. It's weird because, to be honest with you, I haven't really felt like the Chiefs have really had a linebacker core. I feel like they move so many guys in and out, and there's been so many different guys playing that it's hard to say, like, oh, yeah, that's their linebacking core. So I feel like for that, and I feel like because of the names and defense that the Bucs have, because I feel like in general, the better defense is the Bucs as far as like playmakers kind of go and stuff like that. I feel like the Bucs have a complete all-around better defense than the Chiefs do. I think, I feel like the way the Bucs play as far as making big plays, I feel like the Bucs make more big plays than the Chiefs do. I feel like the Chiefs get the job done, but I don't think they have like a star-studded defense. So I got to go with the linebackers for the Bucs on this one. They got Levante David. They got Devin White. They say Pierre-Paul plays outside linebacker, but that's to be kind of bargained with. And then they got Shaquille Barrett, who is originally a linebacker, and I think he's still, him and Pierre-Paul are both listed as linebackers because they run that 3-4 defense, but Pierre-Paul usually plays down the line, so I look at it as Devin White, Levante David, and Shaquille Barrett, which are, to me, superior linebackers in any game. But, yeah, I think the Bucs got the better linebacker core here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I agree with you that I think from front to back, the Bucs defense is better, and I think the Chiefs defense is just more opportunistic and I'm not sure if I agree with you on the big play thing. I think the Chiefs defense has potential to make big plays more often. That's not saying they do, but the way they use them, they can have more opportunities to disrupt everything. But just like you said, looking at the names, nothing really inspires me on the Chiefs linebacking core. And like you said, they switch people around so much that, everybody plays a little bit of everything, it seems like. Tampa Bay's got more of a set group that they rotate, and that front seven for them is probably the scariest thing. When just looking overall at Tampa Bay, I'd say their front seven's the scariest thing for me as a Chiefs fan, and that linebacking core is part of it. So I would give the advantage to the Bucs there.
All right, and the last, I guess, position would be secondary, and that's the safeties and corners. To me, I don't know. It's all about how they play, really. If I had to pick a secondary just out of the blue, like just looking at their overall players, I would say it goes to the Bucs because I feel like Winfield makes plays everywhere. I feel like Jordan Whitehead makes plays everywhere. Jamil Dean is really, really good. Like I feel like they have more big names, but as far as the secondary goes for the Chiefs, I mean, you got the Honey Badger. I still want to see Fenton do something. I still want to see Breland doing something, and that's kind of the downfall for me when it comes to the Chiefs is those corners just can't seem to make the plays when they need to. And then all of a sudden you'll have Daniel Sorensen, which he misses coverage and crap all the time, but all of a sudden he comes up with a big interception and everyone kind of forgives him. And so I feel like the Chiefs, kind of like what you said, the Chiefs defense maybe has more opportunities to make big plays because of the scheme, I feel like. But when it comes to making those big plays, I feel like Tampa Bay, and at least in the playoffs that I've watched Tampa Bay, they've kind of made their own big plays with the fumbles and stuff from last week against the Packers. Those were all because of the plays of Winfield and Whitehead coming in and knocking the ball out. And I don't really see that from the Chiefs. I see more like just interceptions and stuff from like Matthew and Sorensen, but I don't feel like the big plays come from our corners. I might be wrong with that, but I don't know. It's tough for me to pick a secondary, but if I had to pick a secondary right now that I would want, if I could just put the Honey Badger on the rest of the Bucs team, then I would be fine with that.
Yeah, and I would say I agree. Like you said, the scheme's big, and I think Matthew and Sorensen have the potential to play big plays, but if you're just saying it's one game against anybody, you're picking the secondary from either one of these teams that you could trust for this one game, I'd probably pick the Buccaneers. I think they play more sound as far as fundamentals and aren't just kind of flying around like you said. Sorensen can miss coverages here and there, and I think the Chiefs are looking for big plays and not just playing solid fundamental football in the secondary as much as the Buccaneers would. So if I had to trust one secondary to do the job, I think I would definitely pick the Bucs. And again, both these teams, some of the strength on the front four especially, but the front seven for the Bucs as well helps these corners and safeties have a little bit of an easier job. And having on the Chiefs side, having like Frank Clark and some of the disruption they can cause on the defensive line allows Tyrann Mathieu and Sorensen to make big plays, and if they get that pressure on the quarterback, they make a terrible throw, and the safeties can come in and pick things off. So, but just looking at secondaries, definitely the Buccaneers for me.
All right, and the last thing we're going to cover is the coaching aspect of it, and we've talked, a little bit about schemes and everything along when we're talking about the positions themselves. But to me, it's kind of hands down as far as coaching, and I'm probably a little biased on this as well, but I feel like Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy and, just the way the offense is changed as far as the offense uses its weapons the perfect way right now, and our defense kind of just does what it needs to hold the team down. I feel like the coaching as a whole, I feel like the Chiefs have the better coaching staff and the better scheme and the better, I guess, plays than I feel like, and you've kind of heard a little bit from what's Arena? Is it Arians?
Yep.
Yeah, you've heard it a little bit with Bruce Arians about how sometimes he lets Tom Brady kind of do whatever he wants, and like he'll say like, "Oh yeah, Tom Brady wanted to run that play," and so not that I feel like he doesn't have control over it, but I feel like he sometimes is like, well, I'll just let Tom do his thing. And to me, that's not really the best coaching, I guess. And I just feel like the Chiefs have better coaching in all facets of the game. I feel like they just have better plays. I feel like they have better schemes. I feel like they use their players better. And so as far as coaching goes, I got to go with the Chiefs on this one.
Yeah, and I would agree. And we've talked about it with basically every position we've gone over. I think scheme is the big thing. And the Chiefs have more guys that'll be tacticians, I guess. Like you said, Bieniemy with the offense. And, I mean, he's been a big name lately because he should be getting it. As a Chiefs fan, I'm not going to complain, but he should be getting a job somewhere else just based on what he can do with an offense. Spagnuolo, I think that as a defensive coordinator, he's been doing better. I mean, that defense was a thorn in the side of Chiefs fans there for a couple years when that was kind of pulling the team down. He's at least made it solid. And so I think scheme-wise and who's going to make a move that'll change a game and change up a coverage or change up something with the scheme, it's definitely the Chiefs. I think Arians may be more of a kind of a rah-rah guy, somebody that can motivate a team a little bit better, gives a big speech here and there. And I can tell that when he's on like the Cardinals and every team he's been on, his guys love him. So I think he's definitely a motivator, but I don't think they have the experience with his coordinators and everything to maybe be as good tactically as the Chiefs do. And I would definitely give the advantage to Kansas City there.
So with all the advantages through all these positions, who do you got winning this one, Mark?
I mean, we went kind of Chiefs heavy on a lot of these, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think it'll be something like 35-28. I think the Chiefs will win. I'm hoping the Chiefs will win. So, again, we're a little bit biased as Chiefs fans, but I think the Chiefs will win, but I think Tampa will keep it close. I think it'll be within a touchdown, and I think their defense will hold down the Kansas City offense a little bit, but not enough to pull out the win. So that's why I'm thinking it's 35-28 or 28-21, something like that, going the Chiefs' way. What are you thinking on the outcome there?
Yeah, I think it might turn out being kind of like last year's, and I hope it's not, but where Tampa Bay possibly gets a little bit ahead at the beginning, kind of like what they did against the Packers, and then, I mean, the Chiefs' offense is coming. It's just when it's going to hit and how long it's going to hit for and how many points they can score quickly. So I feel like the Chiefs got the upper hand here, and I could see it. I could honestly see it going super Chiefs way, as in like a 42-17 type of game. I think if Tampa Bay gets behind, I think they're done for. So I think if the Chiefs score early and cause Tampa Bay to basically have to throw, I think the Chiefs will kind of run away with it. I know several people have asked me, like, are you wanting a close game? And no, I don't want a close game. I want the Chiefs to blow them out so that I don't have high blood pressure and I don't have to worry about who's winning. And so, yeah, I mean, when it comes to this game, I just want the win, whether it's close or not. I mean, I just want the win as a Chiefs fan. And so what do you think this means for legacies, as in how do you think the Super Bowl goes either way? How do you think the legacies go for Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Tom Brady? What do you think the legacies do depending on the outcome of this game?
I mean, I'll just kind of go one by one there. Mahomes, I think it sets him up as the best quarterback in the league, no doubt. I mean, I think some people are trying to bring in Aaron Rodgers and some of that, and I think this will shut down that conversation immediately. And I don't know if he's a surefire Hall of Famer yet. Some people are saying if he gets a Super Bowl here, that's 2 in his first 4 or 5 years, and just kind of the potential for what he has. I mean, he could always get hurt. Praying to God he doesn't, but I think that just sets them up and kind of, we talked about at the beginning of the season with all the moves they made in the offseason, but I think it sets up that Chiefs dynasty of, okay, this is going to be a Patriots type situation where they're in it every year. There's a chance they win it every year, and as long as you have Mahomes and a couple key playmakers, you can kind of move around the rest of the team to make things work. So I think this sets, I guess it has more of a big effect on the Chiefs as a whole maybe than on Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it definitely solidifies what he's done so far, but I think it solidifies the Chiefs as a dynasty and something to be reckoned with. As far as Andy Reid, I mean, he's accomplished a lot in his career, but this would be kind of icing on the cake for him. Already got that one Super Bowl that was evading him for so long, and as somebody who cheered for the Eagles when I was little, when he was the coach there, Glad to see him get a ring last year and hope he can add as many as he can while he's in Kansas City. So I think that just kind of adds to what's already a legacy as one of the better coaches probably in league history. He's not up there with Belichick, but he's definitely one of the better coaches in league history. And as far as Brady, that's another thing where it could be just kind of icing on the cake. Already has 6 Super Bowls and just kind of growing the distance between him and everybody else as far as Super Bowl wins if he gets another one. It's not going to be the best he's ever performed in a Super Bowl. Like we talked about, he's kind of on the downhill slope, and he's not going to absolutely take over, I don't think, and dominate the game. But it would just be, again, kind of icing on that cake and stretching out his legacy as the GOAT right now. As far as his legacy, what do you think about each of these guys?
Yeah, I'm gonna go backwards through it. So we'll start with Brady, and I think if he wins it, it just kind of adds to the legacy he already has. If he loses, then it is what it is, and I don't think if he loses this, anybody loses any sleep over the other 6 that he won. So I think he's for sure Hall of Fame, already there, good. And I think this year him making it back is kind of, I wouldn't say it's downed as far as Belichick's legacy is, but I feel like this kind of has a question in the back of people's minds of, well, was it Tom Brady that got them all the Super Bowls, or was it Belichick? And so I think by him getting here, I think this is kind of downplayed more of Belichick as a coach. I'm not saying he's not part of the reason they won all those Super Bowls. I mean, obviously you have to have a good coach to get to the Super Bowl to begin with, but it's kind of, with Brady getting there with a different coach, it's kind of looking at Belichick and being like, well, was it Brady or was it Belichick? And I think it'd be interesting to see if Brady wins this one, kind of what comes out of that as far as Belichick and kind of his legacy. Andy Reid, like you said, has been good for so many years, and he just was not able to get that Super Bowl. And it was kind of, they talked about if he never got a Super Bowl, would he be a Hall of Fame coach? And I feel like he did enough to where, yeah, he really would be a Hall of Fame coach even without that Super Bowl, because he had so many winning seasons in Philadelphia. The play schemes and everything that he's done has just been completely top-notch as far as when it comes to head coaches. And that Super Bowl kind of solidified his Hall of Fame. And now I feel like if he can win a couple more, then he is up in the same echelon with Belichick. And so, I want him to win plenty of more. That'd be great as a Chiefs fan. But yeah, I feel like Reid is gonna continue to get better, and I feel like he's already in the Hall of Fame, I would say. And I feel like the more and more Super Bowls he gets, and if he wins this one, I think it just adds up. He keeps going up the list and possibly one of the best of all time. And then, Mahomes, it's kind of like they can build a dynasty, and they're trying to, and I feel like they've got the place, they've got stuff in place to do that. But it's up to Mahomes to kind of lead them along the way, and he's so young that it's hard. We're kind of going into like LeBron James type of thing, like what you said, where he's so good that everyone's like, oh, he had a great season, but this other person actually got close to as good a season as he did, so that must be the MVP of the season. So, I mean, it's a good thing, but a bad thing as far as Mahomes goes. I mean, I feel like, and I don't want to wish anything upon anybody, knock on wood, whatever, but I feel like Mahomes is kind of already in that GOAT legacy, which I feel like once Brady leaves, I feel like Mahomes will be kind of the new GOAT. I feel like he's already done enough to prove that he is the best in the game. And I feel like once Brady's gone, I feel like for sure Mahomes is like the next GOAT. Kind of like once Kobe was gone, LeBron was the next GOAT. And so, I mean, I feel like those talks are always going to be there as far as quarterbacks go, and everything. But yeah, I feel like Mahomes winning another one would definitely help his cause. But I feel like he's already kind of in that conversation as far as like a GOAT type caliber of person. So we're gonna talk about the next thing in sporting news, and I've done a video kind of on this on my own channel and everything, but there's some big news when it comes to sports video games news this week. The big thing is MLB the Show is coming out, and good for us because it's coming into cross-platform, which means Xbox is going to be able to play with PlayStation now. It was just out on PlayStation, and there wasn't really a great MLB game for Xbox users to use. So it's good to see that they've cross-platformed and kind of made the game better as far as bringing in a whole new audience of Xbox users, which is kind of me. I got the new Xbox, and I didn't want to have to go buy a PlayStation just to play MLB The Show, which I have done before. And so it's good that it's coming out on both, and I think it's going to bring a lot of new users to the game. The other thing I think is going to bring users to the game is Fernando Tatis being on the cover. And we talked about it way back when MLB, we were talking MLB news and stuff, and we talked about how Tatis is that lightning rod, is that young person that is going to electrify the league and bring in that younger crowd. And I feel like MLB The Show's kind of taken that and used it as, bringing in a younger crowd with Tatis. I mean, the dude's only like 19 or 20 years old. Like, he is the younger generation of baseball player, and that electrifying kind of swagger that he has is perfect for like the MLB. They don't really have that many players that do that type of thing. So, MLB The Show is coming out. Fernando Tatis is on the cover, and it will be cross-platform for both Xbox users and PlayStation users. And I know that you've been more of a PlayStation guy than an Xbox guy, but what do you think about all this news of MLB coming out?
I mean, I guess I play the Xbox a little bit more than I used to, and probably more balanced now, but I think it's great they're going cross-platform. I mean, I remember things like MLB The Show 13. I had to download on my wife's PS3, and it's just kind of, like you said, cutting off people who could be playing your game. And just from a business standpoint, I think it's great for them. They're going to make probably a ton more money by opening up to the Xbox audience. And I think having Tatis on the cover is genius. I mean, there's not a lot of young star guys in baseball. He's one of them, and you want to kind of gravitate toward that. I think if Mike Trout was more recognizable and maybe a little bit more flamboyant, I guess I'll say, kind of more out there, he'd definitely be on the cover of a ton of video games. But as baseball kind of has a star problem where most people wouldn't recognize a lot of the stars in baseball, and Tatis is one of those guys that you definitely know, and Padres are going to be one of those teams who are going to be exciting this next year, probably be up there as far as one of the big playoff contenders. And I think you definitely want to have a young guy from one of the better teams on the cover, and somebody who can kind of reach out to young people.
Yeah, and I talked with a bunch of people in the MLB community because it's kind of the game I play in the summer, and kind of know a lot of the big streamers and content creators as far as MLB goes, and a lot of them have kind of compared this to Ken Griffey Jr. being the last player that's really changed MLB in general. And I mean, you know the name Ken Griffey Jr. Everybody knows that name. And so, yeah, you hear Mike Trout. Mike Trout's the best player in baseball right now, but you don't hear Mike Trout's name being thrown everywhere like you did Ken Griffey, and you don't have all this big publicity stuff for Mike Trout that you had with Ken Griffey. And so for them to pick Tatis, it's kind of like ushering in the new Ken Griffey Jr. that has the guy that has the swagger and everything. And I feel like baseball kind of needs that right now to continue to grow to the game and continue to reach younger players and all that stuff. And it's great that it's a guy that's from, I wouldn't say he's from a different country that is known for baseball, but it's not that American type of figure that everyone tries to push for. And I think that's great as far as baseball in general, because baseball's kind of been that last, thorn in the side of the American dream, so to speak. They just now recently first acknowledged the Negro Leagues as being part of baseball itself, so they're moving in the right direction. But I feel like everyone says, oh, this is America's game. This is America's pastime. And it's really not that anymore. And I feel like they need to recognize that there's other countries that have these great stars. And you think of the NBA and you think of just mostly, American players. But now you're starting to see other guys come in from different countries and be just as good as American players. So I think it's exciting for MLB to kind of showcase that the game is evolving and the game is getting more known across the world rather than just here in America. And so the last thing about sports games we're going to talk about is EA College Football. We're not 100% sure what the name's going to be called. It used to be NCAA Football, but just recently, as in yesterday, they came out and said that EA, the creators of Madden and NBA and FIFA and all these games, all these sports games, they are going to start working on another college football game. They stopped making it back in 2013 with NCAA 14. So that was the last time they made it. And the big reason why they stopped making it was because of college athletes not being able to get paid. So if you don't know, they're kind of moving in the direction of being able to pay student athletes for their names and their likenesses and stuff, but they're still kind of waiting for that to happen before this game comes out. So I know you played a lot of NCAA football, and I know that we played a lot together. So what is your first, I guess, interpretation of what they released on Twitter, and what do you think? I guess, what do you think about all of the news about them coming out with college football again?
I mean, when I saw the announcement on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and stuff, I was over the moon, because that's a game, and you mentioned it in your video that you made, but that's a game I still play. I mean, I have 2013. I don't even have the last game that they released, and I play that all the time. That's probably one of the games I play the most. And so I was over the moon, but then the more that kind of came out, I guess I switched to being cautiously optimistic. And name, image, and likeness thing, I could do a whole TED talk about that, and that's when I was doing my master's degree program in sports management. That came up basically every class, and like you said, NCAA is moving that way. I know the NAIA, where I work at the KCAC, which is a conference within the NAIA. They already passed some name, image, and likeness legislation, so and I think that took effect this year. I don't know all the details, but I think college sports is moving that way, and I know that different states are pushing for it, and so it's just got to be something that there's going to be a law, name, image, and likeness law passed as far as college athletes getting compensation. And the more I heard about it, the more it seems like it's a few years out. And I think you mentioned the tweet about it where somebody had talked to EA and said that they're excited about all the interest that's been drummed up, but it's probably going to be a few years before we see anything. So I think they're waiting out all the legal issues with this until something gets resolved. And from the ESPN article I looked at yesterday, it sounds like they're either going to wait it out and make sure that they can use the players' names and height, weight, look, all that sort of stuff, which is really the fun of NCAA football, is being able to play with those rosters. And I know people make their own rosters and put them out there, but being able to use those guys that instead of just like a randomly generated thing, which would be the other option, is that they use all of the team names and stuff like that, but it's just a bunch of random auto-generated guys, which kind of takes some of the fun out of it. And as far as other things that would kind of be addressed is maybe gameplay, and you mentioned this in your video on your channel as well. It's probably going to, I think we both expect it to maybe look like Madden does now, which makes me a little sad. I think I kind of like the video game feel, like almost unrealistic feel of NCAA football and kind of the big hits and everything from those games. And you mentioned it on your video, but Madden's been the same for, I don't know, probably 5 years. It's just the same basic gameplay. And I guess I don't personally, I know people disagree with me on this, but I don't personally like the gameplay of Madden. I haven't played it in a while just because I don't like the way that it performs now. But it'll probably be that, but just with college teams and college uniforms and things like that. So something I'll get used to, but I'm excited to have it back, and I think it'll be 2023 to 2025 before we get anything. I think they'll wait out the name, image, and likeness thing, but I'm excited to have that back as an option. Now I just need to get a next-gen console. I don't have PS5 or the new Xbox, so that's what it sounds like it's coming out on. So need to get one of those, but definitely excited about one of my favorite games coming back in some sort of fashion.
Yeah, and when I heard this, it was kind of like, I wouldn't say I didn't see it coming. I would say that kind of what we've learned from, if you've paid attention to anything lately, the internet can do some very, very powerful things when it comes to persuading. And if you don't know anything about that, I'm kind of talking about the stock market and GameStop and all that stuff. And if the internet wants something and the internet's loud enough, the internet will eventually get it. And so I feel like they've been I feel like after NCAA 14, it died down, and then NCAA, about 16, 17, the year of 16 and 17, people are like, okay, this isn't funny anymore. We need a game. We want, NCAA football back. And at that point, it was, we can't. There's nothing we could do. We can make a game that has random people, but that's not what people want. Like you said, people want the real teams. You want to be able to use your favorite college player and not a guy that doesn't look like him or, doesn't even have the same stats or anything. And so I feel like, that's the big thing, the big hurdle. And then, a couple years ago, they said, well, maybe, we should start paying college athletes for names, images, and likeness and all this stuff. And so, and I think it'd be fun for us to do a podcast about what we believe, the name, likeness, all the college athletes getting paid. And especially since you said the NAIA has kind of passed legislation, it'd be interesting to see kind of what they've done or, all that stuff, because it would be interesting to kind of pick the brain and figure out what's actually going on when it comes to this. But I think once that was kind of put in notion that, well, maybe we could pay college athletes for this type of stuff, then the NCAA football people came out and were like, okay, we got to get this game now. Get this passed. Let's make this game. EA's lost out on a lot of money because they haven't been able to make NCAA. And I think it'll be a thing, whether or not, because that's a big thing too, and you've talked about it, is there's so many different places now, and the biggest known name is Operation Sports. So when you talk about Madden, you can actually import draft classes into Madden, and Operation Sports makes these draft classes based on college athletes. And then so you can import these college athletes to the Madden game and draft them and use them. And Operation Sports also does that for the MLB games. They make MLB guys that some of the prospects that aren't in the actual game because they don't have time to go in and add every single player. This third-party Operation Sports people come in, make those players, make their ratings, make all that stuff, and that's added so much good stuff to MLB recently. And so I'm sure Operation Sports might have something to do with something in this NCAA game. But if they do end up releasing a game without actual players, I'm sure Operation Sports will add in the extra players and make everything to where they need to, and then release a mod, and then you can kind of download that mod and play with real players. Now, again, we don't really want to do that because now you have to wait months and months and months before all this is made. But I think NCAA football is so big and so many people want it that if by 2022, 2023 it's not a thing, I'm sure they will release something along the lines of that to be able to have it modded and kind of used. And kind of what you said, I mean, I could go on. I had like a 24-minute video about NCAA football on my own channel, so I won't try to go into it anymore. But I'm just, in general, I'm super excited. It's a game that, like, I remember playing in high school. I remember going, driving an hour to get it at midnight release in Walmart and driving all the way back just to play it all night. It's one of those games that has kind of stood the test of time. And you're talking about how kind of gamey it feels and how it's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's a block game, but it's definitely different than the Madden games out now. And you're right, it is kind of the aesthetic to it, and I kind of said in my video that it's gonna have to play differently than Madden for it to feel like NCAA. Like, it's going to have to be different, otherwise it's going to feel like Madden's reskinned, and people don't want that. They want that college feel. They want that, crazy crowds, and they want that feeling of college football. And so I feel like it's going to take them 2 or 3 years to even come up with what people want. So it'll be interesting to see, and I'm excited about it, and I know a lot of other people are really excited about it coming out. But yeah, don't expect it out in the next couple of years. I'm thinking probably 2023 to 2025, like you, we'll know more of something. But it'll be interesting to see if it does come out. I'm hoping it does, but we'll be interested to see what it looks like when it does come out.
And I think that's going to be about it for us. So we thank everybody for listening. We appreciate you guys. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that wherever you listen to your podcast, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever app you use, make sure that you subscribe there. We also got a YouTube channel where we put the audio up. You can find that by searching Slacker Sports Show. Then we also have a Twitter account where you can get updates, and you can find that by searching @Slacker Sports.